said, Kimberly, we just have one additional item, which is finalizing the selection process for our restorative housing. We started this conversation at our last meeting, and Kim, do you want to get?
Yes. As we mentioned, we have verified and are ready to move forward with the selection of the next 16. The request has been requested that we do that as soon as possible. So we would like to have that scheduled in person on January 13th, so that we can begin preparing and start sending out notifications to those individuals. And secondly, as to the selection process and how, per the guidelines, it's a randomized process. We have looked at a number of options, and we are just going to go old-fashioned and make sure that people can clearly see the process. So we are going to do some type of selection where it's more of a pulling of the ping pong ball from a device, either a cage or some other device that either a community or city's committee member or a community member pulls from. I want to be clear, the idea is not to dramatize this. It's really to make this part of business, so that way we can move forward with finalizing and identifying the first 16, and then also identifying the rest of the participants, so they know where they sit in the ranking of the final 100 plus individuals that will be up for funding in the coming year or so.
If I may ask a question about the selection process, let's say that I am an ancestor senior, someone who qualifies for this first round, 100 and whatever, and I am. So, one, to clarify, the application process is closed eternally. Whoever has applied thus far are the only folks who are going to be eligible at all to receive reparations from the city of Evanston. Is that first correct?
The ancestors who have applied have been verified, and they are the ones that we're selecting from. So they are in receipt of their unique ID number, so they know that number, as well as the next steps. They have been informed that we will be selecting the first 16 this month. So they are already identified and verified. And
that's not the question necessarily, but it's to be clear, the folks who have applied thus far, I think Alderman Braithwaite answered this already, but the answer is yes. The 400 some odd people overall who have applied are the only people who are going to be eligible at all for Evanston reparations, correct?
No.
So there will be a second application process.
No, it's for this program.
No, I know. I get that. Hold on. I'm saying beyond this program, I'm saying for the overall reparations program, there isn't going to be another application process, correct?
Another program, if it's developed, will have another application process.
Okay, so another program will have another application process. This program will not have another application process.
Say this for the committee to determine. Is that not correct?
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand.
That's for Devon. That's our work to do.
Okay. Well, the way things have been going on. I'm just curious what staff's idea is. So, my reason for asking this is if an ancestor who is eligible for, and I don't think this was clear when folks were applying in the first place, but let's say I'm a senior and I don't want this particular form of repair, and I'm one of the 100 and some odd people who qualify, and my number gets drawn, and I say, well, I want reparations, I'm maybe holding out for the next program. If I turn this down, what happens to me? If I say I want reparations, I just don't necessarily want this program.
You have two options, but one of those options is you can turn it down and apply for another program once that's developed.
So, okay, and so it seems...
Councilman Reed, these are the questions that are very appropriate, and I think based on the agenda items, I want to stay within the context of what we need to provide staff. I'm not sure what you are, but typically our meetings have ended on time, and your presence here is extending that. So I want to go right back to our agenda. I'd like to finalize item B, and then any questions that you have, I'd encourage you to speak to staff, or we can take this conversation offline.
Well, I highly appreciate that you're saying that my presence means that we have a more thorough discussion, so I appreciate that. But what I'm asking here is directly related to item B. We're talking about the selection process, and I want to make sure that hold on, Alderman Braithwaite, if a senior, excuse me, Alderman Braithwaite.
Mute him.
Excuse me. So if a senior applies, excuse me, sir.
If not,
we're talking about this. Excuse me, sir.
You know what?
Just let me finish.
I'm not going to do this with you.
Councilman Braithwaite, I'm welcome to ask the question so we can move on, so that we can make a decision on when to do this next step. Questions so I can answer for you, sir?
I just want to make sure that if a senior applies for this, or if they've applied and they determine that this is not the repair that they want, that they're not booted out of the program, that they're still eligible for another program down the road. It was not clear to me, and I don't think it was clear to the community or even to this committee, whether or not we were going to have separate application processes for separate programs. And then secondly, do these applications, there 100 and some odd people who are going to be a part of this selection process, which is what we're talking about now. The rest of them applied thinking that they may be eligible. We determined after the applications were submitted, rightfully so, that we'd be focusing on the ancestors. And so I'm curious, do their applications roll over to the next program without them having to jump through hoops again to become a part of the selection?